a plein air movement in this country for a long time, and painting outdoors is nothing new. It was being done, in cave paintings. They were outside painting on rocks too. So it's nothing new, but it had a resurgence that I think was kind of the balance from a lot of the abstract stuff that was going on with the New York moderns in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And in the 80s, that more traditional feel of actually recording the landscape came into being, along with a real environmental concern and ecological concern that people like Larry Moore in Florida, who grew up in Cocoa Beach, what he knew of Cocoa Beach when he was a kid, you can't even see anymore. And so that recording of the landscape became interesting. I mean, we're looking at it and go, why not? Why not? And then the people, the artists from the South, Jasper Johns is from South Carolina. He lives, up in the Northeast now, and he's famous for what he did in New York. But artists are from somewhere. And looking for artists who would be willing to come here or produce things here was just, it was fun because we got to be able to talk to artists whose work we respected and to see whether they would be willing to travel out of their confines, their comfort zone of painting. When painters paint together for a long time, they develop a common vocabulary. They develop a similarity in palette. They develop a similarity in brushstroke. And it's not that within that group they can't tell who painted what, but an outsider coming and looking at an array of paintings, 10 paintings painted by 10 different painters who've worked together for 10 years, an outsider may not necessarily be able to tell the difference between them. And so once again, getting into that cross-pollination idea, to be able to take an artist from this group that was using a limited palette, and an artist from this group that was painting really thinly on the surface of the canvas, and an artist from this group that really liked to gob on great color, and put them together and see what happened in a landscape that not many of them were familiar with. See what happened, see what blossomed out of that. We had that concern that taken out of their element, will they actually be able to produce the quality paintings that they've produced elsewhere? Sometimes that's a problem for some people. It turned out that we didn't have a problem with that with anybody, but we had painters who'd never been further east than Kansas. And coming into this place where the air is wet from the desert, what that does to the scenery in front of you is huge. How the air just collects color instead of the surfaces of things collecting color. Yeah, well, when we first started doing this, we put the painters in homes of residents in the area. And that was really enjoyable on a level of community involvement and the friendships that developed there, and that was all good. But then we saw that one of the things that the painters were missing was the round table. It was the writers at the Algonquin had it. They got to get together and talk shop. The Impressionists meeting in Paris and sitting around and talking about paint and talking about the salon and talking about stuff. That painters now miss out on that because they are very dispersed. So what we ended up doing was putting them all in one or two houses by themselves, so that if they'd been painting all day and having sand blow in their eyes and they were grumpy and tired, they didn't have to put on party manners and be nice to their hosts. They were going to be their own hosts. But that element of having 10 to 15 painters sitting around in one room talking shop and talking about the new book that they found and talking about this and being able to put up their paintings for the day and say, you know, what do you think? You know, this, I worked on it too long and I still got a problem, and what is the deal? And there you've got, you know, you've got painters with a tremendous amount of experience, years and years and years, talking to painters who have less than 10 years of experience, and being able to give those fresh eyes, but also that the years of accumulated knowledge, the years of accumulated viewing that they can put to use with one another. And they really enjoyed that aspect of it. And being able to be a fly on the wall for something like that is just a dream come true. You had said something about peeking behind the painting, and sitting in a room with these people, listening to people talk about, well, you know, the Rembrandt that you walk through, and you walk through this hall in the National Gallery, and it's right there on your left, and it's this, you know, and they all know where that painting is. And they talk about, you know, well, if you're at the Met and you go here, or they know the painting. They've all stood in front of that painting. Or you start talking about small museums out west, and they go, oh, yeah, that's just amazing. But, you know, this painting was out being restored while I was there. Should I go back and see? Oh, yeah, you got to go back and see that painting. And they have, even though they are from far-flung corners of a big country, they've stood in exactly the same spot because that's their passion. That's what makes them get up in the morning. And so you have painters in their 30s and painters in their 60s, and they converse like they're old friends because they share a passion. Although there are certainly the patriarchs in the group that could easily just be holding court. Charles Mavalli is one of those that you just have people who would just sit at his feet and just let him talk. He's a really remarkable guy, but they all are. They all are.